Great. Welcome, everybody. Just let folks get settled in here and then we'll get going. But I just wanted to say thanks for joining us for a year in review. It's been quite a fun journey just to put this presentation together. So we're excited to share it with folks and to talk about what we've done, some of our learnings, some of the challenges, and to have questions posed to us at the end. So thanks for joining us, and hopefully this will be a fun and interactive webinar. So with us today is myself and my colleague Jennifer Tipple, the Director of Strategy, and Matt George, who's our Manager of Communications, who's making all of this work for us. So if you have any questions, you can use the chat function and the question and answer function, and Matt will relay those messages and questions and comments to us directly. So before we get going, it's important for us to acknowledge the province of Newfoundland and Labrador as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk. And today these lands are home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. And we'd like to acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Mi'kmaq, Innu, Inuit, and Southern Inuit of this province. So we have prepared a presentation, but also we've updated our website. So you can check out our year in review in further detail as well by just clicking on our website, weekendedit.com/review. And we'll have links and hyperlinks to all of the pieces that we'll be talking about today as well. So it's been a year. So thanks again for everybody for joining us. It's been quite a year. I mean, we were thrust into our work, both as a new nonprofit organization, purpose-built to end homelessness in St. John's. Just as we were departing the city of St. John's, we were thrust into this through the pandemic, and it's been quite a year. We've seen a lot of really great and exciting moves and momentum, and we want to capture on that and build on that and share some of those moments that made us really pause and reflect on our work and how we're working to support the community.
So I'll take it from here. We're basically talking about 1 year ago today, which is hard to believe, spring 2020. So actually up until March 31st, 2020, End Homelessness St. John's was actually under the city of St. John's. So just as Canada was acknowledging that the COVID-19 pandemic was a thing that was going to change our lives forever, was right around the same time when we were preparing to move out of the city. So here we were, everything was partly in boxes anyways, and then we didn't know where we were going. We were packing up to move. We didn't know where because we were kind of all having to work from home and at the same time trying to coordinate our office space. So that was kind of a big thing. It was a little bit, that feeling of being up in the air, being in limbo for all folks. And we felt it especially acutely where we were, moving in and out of somewhere where we didn't know where we were going to be. So yeah, those aren't actually our boxes, but it is very representative of the boxes that we had. And a lot of our belongings just stayed in the city because we didn't know when we were going to be able to retrieve them. I think it was just reflective of the chaos that we were kind of all feeling at that time. We all know the COVID-19 pandemic pretty much defined this time last year. So I'll hand it back over to Doug to explain exactly what happened next.
Yeah. So as End Homelessness St. John's was getting ready to leave the city and become our own nonprofit with our own team and board, the pandemic struck, and just as we were getting ready to move, we were told we would be receiving significant funds as part of the Government of Canada's Emergency Response Fund. So they were doing that for a number of causes, and Reaching Home, which is the National Homelessness Strategy, was flowing funds through. So we quickly became a new nonprofit, a team of 5, and really had to transition. How do we provide supports to the community? And one thing we knew at the time, even though we didn't know a lot about COVID, we knew that folks who are in shelter who are experiencing homelessness would be very susceptible to getting COVID. And you may recall too, we had one of the largest outbreaks in the country around this time in April, May, and so we knew if that was at the within a homeless shelter, for example, that we would see some pretty significant impacts across our most vulnerable neighbors. So we designed or designated have a COVID-19 site. So we worked with some community partners to identify what this could look like. We worked with our colleagues at Eastern Health and Infection Prevention and Control to set up a site that we still have today, and to staff it, and to ensure that anybody who was being screened in for testing for COVID could isolate safely and securely in a private manner. So that was a big undertaking for the first month of our as we were days old, as we were saying, as an organization. We were building out this designated site, working with some really important partners. We also recognized at the time too, there was a scarcity of PPE across the community, and so we had an excellent colleague, Krista Gladney, is with the City of St. John's, who was seconded to work with us originally on the pit count, take on some of the leads on finding and distributing PPE across the community, and we continue to operate both the designated COVID-19 site as well as a PPE fund today. And that was, just us being a couple of weeks old at the time, and really having to staff that up. And the community in the province and our colleagues across levels of government have been really helpful and instrumental in making that a reality as well.
So next, what happened in May/June 2020 was we launched our Home Connect program. We hadn't originally planned to launch it at this time, but guess what? The message was that we were hearing from our public health officials and our government officials, this time last year was, if you want to stay safe, your best bet is to stay home. And so the next question is, of course, what do you do if you have no home? So we accelerated the launch of our Home Connect program, which is basically an online housing inventory that's designed to create matches between landlords in the private rental market, tenants who have experienced barriers to housing stability, and the community agencies that support those tenants or clients. So we didn't, we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants as it was, but we knew we had to do everything we could to support people to be able to access safe and secure housing and to keep themselves safe during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we launched this Home Connect program. We put in place several benefits and protections that are designed to protect both landlords and tenants. And those included things like our landlord protection fund to cover damages that might be caused during a tenancy. And we also put in place inspections, even during the pandemic when, it was really unclear who could enter whose house and do what. We did regular inspections with our own program staff to ensure that we could ensure the safety and suitability of those units. And we also had designated point of contact for folks to be able to identify any barriers to housing or any issues that would arise in a really proactive manner. So kudos to the Home Connect team. At that time, it was only Sherwin Flight. He was a one-man show. Now we're really pleased to announce, and this will come up later in our presentation, we're actually a three-person team with Home Connect, including Simone Lilly, the manager of community investment, Sherwin Flight, who is our landlord engagement lead, and Nicole Aylward, who is our tenancy support lead. So back over to you, Doug.
Yeah, and at the same time as we were growing, we added some staff capacity because, like any organization, you need a good admin team, and so Megan Murphy joined our team as the office manager, and it was one of those moments where we were meeting and we weren't even sure we should be meeting, but we met and dropped off a laptop and some information and kind of like ran away to our own home, so we weren't violating anything, but it really did speak to the kind of team that and folks that we've been able to attract to the team is folks who are willing to take risks, in the height of uncertainty. So that was a really important hire for us.
So now we're moving into summer 2020, right about now, when it's starting to heat up. Can you imagine? Summertime in Newfoundland is always a hit and miss type scenario. So the highlight of our summer, one of the highlights in our summer 2020 was the launch of our community plan. which I never have far from me. I don't know if you can see it with my background on, but there we go. Anyways, it is also on our website. It's a fairly hefty document, but there's a lot of really great stuff in there that really just explains the why End Homelessness St. John's exists, as well as the philosophies and theories and best practices that we subscribe to, both from the national level of ESDC, the federal body that administers Reaching Home, Canada's homelessness strategy, as well as Built for Zero Canada, which is really a change movement that's designed to demonstrate to communities how to shrink the change and really get from that big, overwhelming, scary notion of ending homelessness and describing what that actually looks like to make it real. So that document was a long time in the making, and a big shout out to all of our community partners and our government partners, other stakeholders at the End Homelessness St. John's Board of Directors, as well as our Community Advisory Board, our CAB. So many people had a hand in bringing this document to life. Big shout out to Matt as well for all his work on the design. It's quite a beautiful document, I think, and special shout out to the Hub, a social enterprise organization here in St. John's, for the printing as well. It really was a true community effort right from start to finish, and we're so proud to have brought it to life. Now back to you, Doug.
Yeah, so in the summer, we like a lot of folks, we're starting to get back into the swing of things and starting to get back to work. And so we were able to move into a new space up at 25 Buckmaster Circle, and we're really fortunate that the City of St. John's was able to provide that space for us. We've been really fortunate to have a great working relationship with the city, and their support and partnership has really made a difference. Well, through the transition to our own nonprofit, and even today as we're on our own, by providing space and additional supports and funding. So kudos to the city as well for being great partners.
So the other really awesome thing that happened in August, I mentioned already our Home Connect program. There was a lot of uncertainty in the rental market at that time, as I'm sure landlords will remember, because a lot of landlords are banking on the university student population to reside in their residential units, especially in, center city parts of downtown St. John's. And nobody knew really what was going to happen. I mean, we found out that Memorial University was not going to be returning to in-person classes. And we were wondering, okay, how is this going to affect the rental market? And, the flip side of that question is this an opportunity for us to really work with some landlords that might not otherwise work with us? So in August 2020, we decided to do a landlord engagement, a real kind of an advertising blitz. And as End Homelessness St. John's, when we were under the city, we didn't really have the opportunity to do a lot of advertising. And so really it was the first kick at the can for End Homelessness St. John's to try out how do we work with our local media partners, including, Stingray Communications, radio, newspaper, Twitter, Kijiji, NL Classifieds, basically the whole works, anything we can think of. And, us as a nonprofit, our media partners were really great to work with and were able to offer us some really affordable packages. And as a result of that, we did see an uptick in the number of landlords that just learned about our program and then who signed on to the program. We're always looking for new landlords. We can only kind of bite off what we can chew. We've learned, that's one of the learnings with Home Connect, is kind of that, that planned, measured growth. You can't get too far ahead of yourself. And we're really excited to see what happens as we head into year 2. And a big thank you to all the landlords and all the partners who've come on board with us with Home Connect.
Yeah, so as we were leaving the summer and entering the fall, that second wave was really spreading across the country, and the federal government had additional pressures to support communities around the country through Reaching Home by providing an additional allotment of funds. So this time around, we received about $1.5 million to support community efforts between October and June 30th of this year. So we had 9 months worth of funding. And one of the things that we were able to do, and something that we've taken as a philosophy, is really having system and community-wide responses. So what that meant for us was working really closely with Eastern Health, for example, to develop a harm reduction program. And that was born in part because, folks who needed access to the designated site for isolation, if they had any active mental health or substance use issues, it would be really difficult for them to isolate safely without those medical supports in place. And recognizing too that although our community and our province was fairly low in terms of COVID numbers and cases, there was an opportunity to have these medical supports go out and be active in the community. So we were really excited to work with Eastern Health on that. And the other thing too that I think we were trying to be pretty strategic on was the intentional use of our funds to be matched with the provincial funds, because what that did was it allowed us to take our funds beyond June 30th of this year. So that harm reduction program, for example, that's going to run for throughout this whole year, because Eastern Health is backloading their cost matching component of it. The other piece too that we did was we funded some housing supports work through the fall. We had a number of organizations receive a grant, and this was really, again, to bolster the activities within the community to support responses to COVID. So we funded a number of organizations over $400,000, and those projects are continuing today to support folks find and maintain housing. We also, we recognize too that housing is one component of staying safe during a pandemic. A lot of people were suffering economically, especially those with precarious incomes, and that really came to light in conversations that we had at the community level, hearing about the issue of food security. So we partnered with Food First NL to support their emergency food helpline and to ensure that they had access to the supports, more meals, for example, gift cards that they could deliver to folks in need. And just recognizing that housing stability isn't just the home itself, it's everything that goes into keeping you safe and secure in your home. So we were really fortunate to have these bigger system-wide responses and community-wide responses to support our most vulnerable neighbors.
So next came our community portal, and I'd invite you all, certainly if you haven't already, to visit our website. It is wecanendit.com, and we chose that because End Homelessness St. John's is way too long to type, and there are way too many S's. We Can End It is a lot shorter, and also it is a testament to what we're trying to do here, which is end homelessness. We've already talked about what we're going to do when we actually end homelessness. We're not going to change our website. We'll just go on to end something else, because there are lots of social programs out there. In any case, our community portal is something we launched last fall in an effort to better coordinate the services and resources that we're able to provide to our community partners. And that's the agencies that actually work with folks who are experiencing homelessness and at imminent risk. So it's really a place for all of those resources to live. Any of our consent forms, our intake forms, our claim forms, any of our COVID resources, like how do you access PPE, all that stuff is in one place. And you know what it's like when you create anything on the internet, on the website, then the hard part is maintaining it and keeping it updated and fresh. So we are in the process of updating that now as we update all our processes. And so certainly stay tuned this summer and into the fall to see what's going to be new on that community portal site. And also, I do just want to mention, because I don't think we mentioned it elsewhere in this presentation, our supported referrals program, which is actually, it's an End Homelessness St. John's initiative. We ripped it off of Homeward Trust in Edmonton, Alberta. They're one of our sister community organizations across the country. And supported referrals provides flexible funding for folks to be able to access housing or to maintain housing stability where they are. So those are things like funds for security deposit. It could be anything from paying off utilities arrears, rental arrears, etc. That it does have to be accessed through community agencies, and it has to be demonstrated that there's ongoing sustainability in order to maintain that situation. And we've seen humongous growth in that program, which is really a testament to the fact that how much there's a program needed that can just pay those one-off, like if it's a matter of a $200 security deposit that's standing in the way of someone's ability to access housing, let's just make that go away. And sometimes it's as simple as that when it comes to ending homelessness in our community for certain folks. So I'm going to pass it back to Doug now.
Yeah, and so during the fall, we were able to onboard some new staff, and so we had Pam Jones join our team as the manager of knowledge mobilization, and she'll be working with the community to implement our shared information management system. It's called HIFIS 4, and it's offered by the feds, and so Pam's working with the community to sort of implement that and integrate that into the work we do. And what is exciting about that is we'll be one of a handful, if not the only community that I'm aware of in the country that's using this program from a shared data perspective across the community. So implementing this across the shelter system and across the housing and the homeless serving programs within the community, it will allow us to identify how folks move within and between the system, identify gaps and identify opportunities so we can allocate resources and strategies to solve those problems when we see them emerge through the evidence that we're collecting. So that's really exciting, and Pam's leading that front. And I know Jennifer mentioned Simone Lilly joining the team as the manager of community investments as well. And Simone's been working really closely on the Home Connect side of things and is working with the community to support how we invest the funds that we receive through the feds and to work with the province and other sources like the city so we can better make better investments into the needs that are being identified through data and through the system coordination that we're working towards. So we're excited to have a really strong cast of team members who see the value in all the work that we're doing and can articulate that at the community level. So yeah, so in the winter, we received, I guess, wave 3 of funding, if you will. So we were able to formally launch, the harm reduction program that came on board at the end of December and was really implemented across the community at the very beginning of 2021. And those folks have supported a number of individuals with basic medical services and supports across the community, whether it's in a shelter or doing street reach or having a clinic from Monday to Friday. They've been amazing, and our partners with Eastern Health have been really, really important to work with because housing stability is also important from a health perspective, and everybody plays a role. And the pandemic has brought us to that place where we can say this isn't just an income support issue or a housing corporation issue. This is an all of government issue that we can all play a role in supporting, and they've really shown up. So we're really fortunate to have that partnership with them. Again, continuing with the issues around food security, right? We knew that generally the province has very high rates of food security, and that was exacerbated through the pandemic. So we're fortunate to have great partners with Food First and the work that they're doing to support folks at the community level, and using the federal funds to support that has been again another benefit of having that community and system-wide response. Yeah, and something that we've been really, really focused on throughout the last 6 months as we sort of plan our work for this year is stakeholder engagement. And part of that is making sure that we're accessible and available. And right now in a virtual format, but hopefully soon one day, in-person formats as well. And part of that is sharing the work that we do, because it is kind of interesting work. Like we call ourselves a system planning entity. And for a lot of folks, it's not quite clear. So that's something that we want to make sure folks have a chance to understand better, to see how we can support both provincial departments as well as community organizations across St. John's. And so part of that is hosting events. And we did host one just focused on COVID. What does it look like 1 year later? And we brought together a panel of organizations that receive federal funds and provincial funds to also provide community and system responses, and how we work together to support that, and how do we build on this momentum moving forward, because the pandemic's here still, but the momentum that we're seeing working across the community and across our public systems is something we want to build on. And then, as Jennifer mentioned, we had Nicole Elward join the team. She was kind of already part of the team because she was working at the designated shelter site, and she was working really hard to keep that going. And we had an opportunity from funding through the Canada Housing Transformation Center to try and innovative partnerships. And so we hired Nicole to be our tenancy lead, and so her role is now working with the community, which is something she's great at, and we're fortunate to have her on board and supporting our Home Connect program, the community organizations, and their tenants.
So we're nearing the end of our presentation now. Looking over the entire year, we just want to highlight, like Doug mentioned, stakeholder engagement is so important to our work. And that's true for several reasons. First off, it's not entirely clear to folks right off the hop what it means to be a purpose-built nonprofit to end homelessness. We don't directly work, well, we usually don't directly work with folks who are experiencing homelessness or at imminent risk of homelessness. And so it's incumbent on us to be able to explain to folks what it is that we actually do. And a lot of the time it is those bigger systems pieces that people can be doing great work with individuals and families all across the community. But we really have to lift that up. Like, what does it actually look like to end homelessness? How do we talk about a coordinated system? How do we fill those systems gaps? And how do we measure the data and be able to convey the data so that when we actually end homelessness, we'll be able to demonstrate that. And that's really the crux of what we do. So it's been super critical for us to get out there and really explain to folks what it is we do and how it is that we work with all our community partners, but we don't directly duplicate their work, we complement their work. The other thing too is that while we were under the city of St. John's, we were kind of an entity under the city. And it's really only since April 1st, 2020 that we've actually existed as our own nonprofit, which really gave us the opportunity to get out there and kind of sing from the rooftops what it is we do, which is largely fallen on Doug's shoulders. So we've kind of curated a list here on this slide of just a fraction, I'd say maybe a quarter, maybe a third of all the media appearances that we've done over the past years. And most of them have been done by our illustrious executive director, who is in front of you here today, Doug Pawson. So I'm doing this slide so I can toot his horn. Just to say, it's been just incredible for an organization that really was kind of reborn as of April 1st, 2020, to be able to get out there in front of the community, and also just how critical our importance for the community was due to the COVID-19 pandemic and having this additional federal funding. I mean, we really had to hit the ground running and get out there in front of folks and explain to people, why is it important that we're doing this right now? How does this relate to COVID? You know, when our public health advisors say to us, you know, stay home, what role do we play in actually convening that home for people? So just really a shout out to Doug for being piece of the organization, and also a huge shout out to Matt George, who is our communications manager, who is behind the scenes on this presentation, for supporting all of our communications and stakeholder engagement efforts, and also being the warm body behind all of our social media as well. And we've pulled out a couple of our social media stats there just to show the reach that we've been able to have through the work that we've done in the past year. So, I mean, I'm really proud of our team and how we've been able to get that message out there to the community. And these webinars are an ongoing part of that. So thank you all for attending here today. And hopefully you'll all spread the word. So with that, we're moving on. We're about at the halfway mark in our 50-minute time frame here today. And we wanted to leave a lot of room for questions and answers from folks that are tuning in today. And a special shout out to a couple of those folks. We heard from Sean Skinner, who is our former End Homelessness St. John's board chair, actually our founding End Homelessness St. John's board chair, who was really instrumental in this whole transition piece. And it was really great to have him here on the line here today. And also a special shout out to my mom, Louise Tipple, who's tuning in here today. And she's seen kind of the personal side of, you know, all these things happening throughout the year. And when I come over for Sunday dinner, having to hear about the challenges and stuff, I think it was just really interesting for her to hear kind of the full picture of the year and how it's actually happened. I mean, like I said, this is a community effort, right? From all of our government partners to our community agencies to our family and friends, and it affects everyone in our community. And we're super grateful to have your support at this time. So without further ado, we'll open it up to questions and answers, and don't be shy. I should also mention that if you wish, you can ask questions with your name. There's also an option when you're typing in the Q&A box that you can ask a question anonymously as well if you're feeling a little shy, and that's totally fine. Okay, so let's see here. We have a question coming in. It seems your team grew quite a bit this year. So what were the challenges around shifting to a working from home setup? Yep, fair question. Doug, maybe you'd like to take that one?
Sure, yeah, quickly, and then I saw another question come through too. But yeah, the like everybody, I think we kind of recognized coming out of Snowmageddon and how important it was to be able to have the remote working capacity, and so it was really it was kind of that was I guess the starting point for how we decided that we could work from home and how we could go about doing it. But yeah, I would say the challenges were not just logistics. I mean, I think we kind of sorted it out fairly early on. I think the challenge was just the uncertainty and dealing with the anxiety that all brought about, and making sure folks felt supported in their work, even if we were disconnected from the office. And so we quickly moved to daily briefing meetings and quick meetings, and we've adopted a lot of new technology and software. So that's been really helpful, and it's something that we'll continue with as we move forward as an organization, as the kind of workplace culture we want to build. So yeah, having that flexibility and those options, we're really fortunate to have. So I see another question. I'll read the question out, and then we can figure out who wants to take the first stab at this. But this one comes in from Egan Holland. What challenges do you see in the year ahead? You've done a great job of recapping. Where do you think it goes next?
That's a great question. Are we going to fight over it?
Yeah,
I take first stab, and then you can fill in the gaps. So big challenges for the year ahead. I mean, honestly, we couldn't in our wildest dreams have forecasted that our first year of being a purpose-built nonprofit out of the city of St. John's would also dovetail with an unprecedented global pandemic. It's really been a lot of survival mode and kind of just trying to tread water. The picture of the duck that's gliding peacefully along the water, and then underneath, the little feet are going like this. That's the image that we were hoping to portray. I hope we actually did that. So I think right now, it's really a matter of taking stock of all the things that have happened, like being able to take that breath and kind of refocus. I mentioned earlier our community plan to end homelessness, this guy right here. We will be releasing an annual update to that, as we promised we would. And part of that was because, we released it in the middle of the pandemic. We knew our timelines were going to shift. We just didn't know, because we didn't know where the pandemic was, how it was going to affect us when we released it in August. So now we have a better idea of how our timelines are going to be impacted, what our priorities are. We've got a full or almost full roster of team members in place. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of resetting, kind of taking stock of where we're at. And with respect to the next year, we're super excited. We actually just had a meeting about that this morning. We're super excited to take some big key steps in our journey to ending homelessness, such as relaunching and formalizing our coordinated access to homes program, which is kind of our one-stop shop for matching folks experiencing or at risk of homelessness with resources and services that are provided in the community, as well as our HIFIS 4 launch, that shared database that Doug mentioned, and as well, really honing in on our key performance indicators. What are those actual measures that dictate to us what it looks like to end homelessness? Kind of that the North Star, we call it a lot of the time. What are those things that actually, like, when we start to move the needle on something, we know that we're reaching our goal of ending homelessness?
Yeah, I guess just to build a bit on that is, just really getting back to the basics that we've outlined in the community plan, things that are, best practices that we've made a lot of improvements on and are ready to now launch. I think, we've got an opportunity in front of us to, even within the next year, around some COVID funds, additional COVID funds that are emergency response funds that are coming through, to support additional capacity at the community level and making those strategic investments with, say, Eastern Health and NL Housing Corporation to make sure that we can extend the runway of those supports beyond just the shelf life of those funds. And I think being very intentional about how we support the community and our public system partners and integrating them into the process to make sure that everybody sees their role in it. So whether you're an ED of an organization or frontline staff person, whether you're a minister or, a policy analyst, like there's a role for everybody. And I think one of the things we want to focus on this year is stakeholder engagement, but making sure that folks see themselves as contributing to that solution, to that goal of ending homelessness.
See another question coming in here. What would you say was the biggest win for End Homelessness St. John's this year? And conversely, what was the biggest challenge? Any thoughts on that, Doug?
I guess I'll start this one, and then you can fill any gaps that I miss. I think the wins. I mean, we've talked a lot about some of the things that we were able to do. Everything that we talked about was grounded in some kind of a challenge or multiple challenges throughout, right? So, thinking just about the harm reduction component, thinking about all the late night conversations that we had with folks, in the middle of the night to say, this individual is going to need additional medical supports. Like what can we do to get something in place? Those hard conversations, those late night conversations, they've brought about the changes that we're starting to see. And I think, the challenge will be to build on that momentum, whether it's, funding new capacity in the community, getting coordinated access to homes formalized and running, getting HIFIS up and running at the community level. Like these are all going to bring about little sets of challenges, but recognizing, we're trying to build out a new system of care for the community and our partners, and they're integral to that. So we know that, communication is going to be something that we have to focus on, and pushing back and pushing some of the boundaries that we know exist, whether it's at a public system level or internally, just making sure that we have the ability in the space to make those changes that we need.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would echo all that. I think for me, the biggest win is just that journey of creating that purpose-built nonprofit, as well as our ability to be able to attract such talented and diverse staff in terms of their experience, to be able to come on board with us and do this work. I mean, this work is sometimes like beating your head against a wall. I mean, it's not, where we don't work directly with folks experiencing or at risk of homelessness. A lot of the time we do end up working with the system, sometimes against the system. Yeah, it's a special breed that really thrives in this environment and being able to do this work. And I'm just so pleased and proud that we've been able to attract, a dream team to be able to do this work. That's the biggest win. And yeah, the biggest challenge, I think we kind of articulated that, was just, moving so fast in a pandemic. So we have another question here. What's been the most challenging part of moving outside of the city's umbrella? And how has moving out on your own really helped push forward larger goals? I mean, that's hilarious. It's so true. We actually joked a lot with the city at the time that we were like, moving out of our mom and dad's house, but we could still come home from time to time and like do our laundry and get a nice meal, because the city has been so supportive of us. In fact, like we're actually sitting in a city-owned office space right now. So we're like kind of the boomerang child. I think we're sort of moved out, but we haven't quite left. What would you say, Doug?
Yeah, I would say from the most challenging part, I guess I don't really know if it was all that challenging, because I thought the transition was planned really thoroughly from like sort of an 18 to 24 month process. And just working so closely with the city and the folks there within housing have been just really great. And counselors have been great. And they've constantly shown us the support that we need to push forward our larger goals. And I would say, I guess, in terms of the second part of that question, Megan, is, how has moving out on our own really helped push forward our larger goals? It's allowed us to develop our own voice. And, we're still, we're a year and a bit old now, and we're still developing it as an organization. And how do we ensure that the, voices, diverse voices, those with lived experience are amplified even more, and that's going to be a big focus for us in the next year or two as well. And recognizing that even though we're End Homeless St. John's, a lot of the factors that contribute to homelessness in our community are at the public system level. And so we have more flexibility to meet with provincial government partners and supporting them to see how we can improve whether it's regulation or program policies and procedures, and maybe even eventually legislation. I think having the flexibility and the autonomy that being our own purpose-built nonprofit provides allows us to push those goals, because what's good for somebody in St. John's at a public system level is probably going to be good for other folks around the province if we can make those services and supports equitable and accessible. So, the city's been great, and wherever we can, we support each other through the affordable housing strategy, for example, and our community plan to end homelessness. And we look to them to continue to be valued partners with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only thing I would add there, that was challenging, and again, made extra challenging in the context of having to do it during the pandemic, was just having to start from scratch with a lot of things, like even our payroll system. The city just magically paid our paychecks, and then all of a sudden we have to, oh my goodness, we've got to make sure that we've got our payroll set up and that we've got pens and staplers and cell phones and all these things. It's you kind of take for granted. It's almost like we were, I used to work in the tech startup world. It was almost like that, because you had to think of all the things that when you're working in a big organization like the city that's well established, you take for granted. And then we're out on our own, and it's we need a whiteboard, we need this, we need that. And, it's just all the things. And of course, being in the pandemic made it harder to procure some of those things. I think our furniture took, I don't know, it felt like 7,000 years for that to arrive. It was probably only about 4 months, but you know what it's like in a pandemic on an island. It was just it'll get here someday. We ended up receiving it. Yeah, I think it was September 1st that it finally came in. So just all those things that we really kind of took for granted under the city. Yeah.
Great question.
Next question here. Why was the 2019-2024 plan released in August of 2020? Excellent question. What caused the delay?
That's all you.
Thoughts on that? You want me to take that one? All right. Yeah. That is a great question. And what I'm finding the longer I spend in this sector is how much timelines just don't really line up sometimes. So the reason for us having a 2019 to 2024 community plan to end homelessness is dovetailing with the Reaching Home Canada's homelessness strategy, which is the Government of Canada initiative. So that's where we receive our federal funding from, which is expected to be cost matched here at the local/regional level. And so with that comes a fair amount of guidance from ESCC, the department that is in charge of Reaching Home. So Reaching Home actually replaced the previous homelessness strategy, which was called the HPS, the Homelessness Partnering Strategy. So that was 2014 to 2019. So that's why you see the 2019-2024 community plan. So just a bit of context there. Why we were delayed in releasing that was for a couple of reasons. I'd like to blame it all on the feds, but they might be on the call, so I'm going to go a little gentle there. No, I'm kidding. The whole HPS was ended up having kind of a year 6 into 2019-2020. Some aspects of Reaching Home were not quite ready to announce. So it was kind of like we just did a year 6 of the 5-year HPS plan until those elements of Reaching Home could be announced. So there were some key elements of Reaching Home that we were waiting for in order to really finalize and beef up our own community plan to end homelessness here in St. John's. And those elements kind of came out around a bit later into the fall of 2019/spring of 2020. So we really wanted to ensure that we were in line with some of those federal components that really help to anchor and drive our work. So yeah, that was one of the reasons for the delay. The other thing is, I mean, Doug joined our team in March 2019, which is hard to believe because it feels like he's been here a lot longer in a good way. So, you know, we really wanted to ensure that with the new executive director at the helm, that we were able to really shape our strategy moving forward with that in mind. And with that also came a transition with the transition out of the city of St. John's. We had a whole governance transition as well to an independent nonprofit, from the sense of having our first, governance centered board of directors, and also in an advisory capacity, that community advisory board we mentioned earlier. So we were still getting those bodies in place, and we really wanted to ensure that we were consulting with them in a robust and a respectful way. And we didn't want to just rush it out the door for the sake of having that there. So as a result, I mean, we had originally intended to release the plan in March 2020. And then, of course, this whole pandemic thing happened, and we had a lot of stuff on the go. We were like, okay, let's just cut ourselves some slack, give ourselves a bit of grace here. And so we pushed it out until August to give us some time to get over that kind of pandemic hump where we had all hands on deck doing the things we just needed to do to kind of keep ourselves afloat. So that's the reason for that. I don't know if you had to add anything there, Doug.
Yeah, no, I guess the other thing too is, you know, what makes End Homelessness St. John's fairly unique around the country is that that is our job. Like our main focus is ending homelessness in this community. And so when you see a lot of other communities administering reaching home funds, oftentimes it's done through municipalities. And so you don't necessarily see the kind of robust planning that at a community level, at a public system level, that's required to actually make a dent in ending homelessness. So I think, you know, we put a lot of effort into that planning process in the document itself, because it really is our outward facing plan to end homelessness. And so you don't see that in a lot of communities, and I'm not trying to slight anybody or anything. It's just the way that funding tends to be administered, and being purpose built for this specific goal allows us to have that singular focus. Even though we have a lot of moving parts and a lot of team work doing the actual, boots on the ground work, that plan is what we're accountable to our board, to our advisory board, and to our community partners. And it's something that we really value in providing that plan. We're really fortunate to do the work we do, first off. And I think, very privileged to have this opportunity to be in this space and to talk about those directions, those action items, the key pieces that we need to see in place. We want to be transparent and leading those conversations and supporting those developments. So
awesome. Yeah, we're pretty much nearing the end. We have about 3 minutes left of our scheduled time. If anyone has a last minute question, feel free to pop it in, and we'll do our best to answer it quickly. In the absence of that, we are open door here. We don't have literal doors at some point working from home, but any and all questions, comments, feedback, etc., Doug and I and the team are more than happy to hear them. And Matt just flicked up our Find Us Online slide, so absolutely check us out on Twitter and Facebook. I mentioned our website as well. We would love for you to sign up to our newsletter if you haven't already. That's the best way to stay apprised of all upcoming webinars and all the fun things that we do. So if you're on our website, just scroll to the very bottom and there's a newsletter, sign up there. Did you have any last thoughts there, Doug?
No, just thanks everybody for taking time out of your day to join us. We're going to take a lot of the work that's been done through this presentation, and we're going to put it into an annual report that we'll release, into the future. But really appreciate your time and your support, and for taking the time out of your day to join us. So thanks again, everyone, and we'll look forward to hearing more from you as well.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Thanks for joining us.